I'm Andrew from the band Ripped to Shreds, and today we're going to talk about 5 E-standard death metal riffs that you should know. Obituary, being one of the original death metal bands from Florida, had a very thrashy sound, but owed a lot more to Celtic Frost than many of their peers, often sounding like they played Celtic Frost covers with more extreme vocals. Although they would tune down to D by cause of death, they were still an E-standard on their debut album Slowly We Rot. This is Gates to Hell. This riff sounds strangely familiar. It sounds a lot like Drown from Left Hand Path. Nick had traded tapes with Executioner, and Slowly We Rot came out in '89. And from what I remember, Drowned and Left Hand Path were the last 2 songs to be written for the album, right as they entered the studio. So I think it's pretty likely that Obituary directly inspired the riff for Entombed. Merciless is a death thrash band from Sweden and one of their earliest successes when it came to extreme metal. They signed with Euronymous' label Deathlike Silence Productions, and their debut album, The Awakening, was the first album put out on that label. They had a much more thrashy edge than their death metal contemporaries, but they were still capable of death metal heaviness in E. This is Pure Hate. I picked this tremolo riff because it's the most death metal on this song. I tried playing it in B, but it sounded kind of bizarre. I think most of the riffs in this video could be played in E flat or D and not sound too strange, but the speed here definitely suits the tuning. The original recording of The Awakening sounds a little weak by modern standards, but all the songs off it sounded really sick when I caught them at California Death Fest in 2017. Horrendous is the only modern death metal band playing in E-standard that I'm aware of. Their debut album, The Chills, hit like a truck of HM2 goodness in 2012. I first heard of them in 2015 when their proggy masterpiece Anorata came out, saw them play live on tour with Tribulation and Youth Code in 2016, and have been a fan ever since. Damien from Horrendous mixed my first record and mastered all the rest, and I'm proud to call him a friend. This is Flesh Rot. I love how the harmonic minor galloping on top of the blast explodes into a triumphant D beat. The slower intro to the song, which I didn't play, otherwise I would just play the entire song, also makes use of inverted power chords with a fourth in the bass to create the illusion of being tuned lower than it actually is. It's a common device that was often used by Entombed, and also by this next band. Deicide has used a lot of tunings throughout their almost 40-year career, but their second album, Legion, was tuned to E. In general, I don't really like the sound of fast double bass in death metal. I prefer it mid-tempo, but Steve Ashheim makes it sound so energetic and pissed that I couldn't imagine Deicide as a primarily blast beat band. This is Trifiction. This riff was a little difficult to decipher for me, but based on the recording and looking at live footage, I'm pretty confident that they bar the first fret on the A and D strings to create an inverted E-flat power chord, which helps the riff sound chunkier and heavier than it might seem. All down picking is required as well. I kind of just played whatever for the Slayer type solo. It's hard to learn those kinds of things note perfect. As a side note, I think Kerry King is unironically a very underrated lead guitarist. His whammy solos and noise are iconic for the Slayer sound, and not at all easy to replicate. Last is Atheist, also from Florida, a technical death metal band that included some jazz stylings in the drumming and the bass. Their later albums got weirder and weirder, especially Elements, but Piece of Time is solid thrashing death metal all the way through. This is the title track. The riff underlying the solo changes tonal centers, and I think having the second part downpicked and palm muted is a great change in color. And then the part that comes after that with the vocals is pure buzzsaw type tremolo, and I think it moves through a couple of different key centers, but I'm not really sure what the academically correct way to analyze it is. Of all the riffs in this video, I think this one in particular is totally independent of tuning. The rest could probably be dropped a half step or whole step to be heavier. The heaviness of Atheist comes through the frantic pacing rather than low tune chugging, and all the notes in this riff are high up on the neck to begin with.